The Queen of Last Minutes. KWIIM Rosie Stories. Ayomide, a brilliant and ambitious mass communication student, had a recurring ritual every semester. She'd declare, "This semester, I'll be more organized." And with a fancy planner adorned with gold stickers, she'd meticulously write, "Week 1 study plan," in her perfect handwriting. However, beneath her polished facade, Ayomide was a self-proclaimed queen of procrastination. Despite her best intentions, she'd often find herself stuck in a cycle of delay and distraction. As the exam loomed 2 weeks away, Ayomide's friends would invite her to the library, but she'd decline, thinking it was too early to dive into intense studying. "I'll read tomorrow," she'd promised herself, until the eve of the exam. This perpetual postponement had become a habit, and Ayomide struggled to break free from its grasp. The day before the exam, Ayomide cracked open her book, determined to cram as much information as possible. However, the more she tried to focus, the more her brain seemed to rebel against her. She glanced at the clock. It was only 10 a.m., there's still plenty of time. With a sigh, she closed the book and reached for her phone. As she scrolled through the internet, she stumbled upon Brain Jotter's hilarious videos and couldn't help but burst into laughter. The hours slipped away, and before she knew it, her mind flashed to the looming exam. Panic set in, and she quickly reopened her book, trying to absorb the material. But her head felt like a brick, refusing to cooperate. A glance at the clock revealed it was already 2 p.m. Maybe it's just too sunny outside, she thought, attributing her lack of focus to the weather. "I'll read when the sun comes down." With that rationalization, she picked up her phone again and dove into TikTok, dancing along to one of the trending challenges. As she twirled and spun to the beat, her worries about the exam momentarily faded away. But deep down, she knew she was just delaying the inevitable. The clock was ticking, and tomorrow's exam would soon be upon her. After the TikTok dance, Ayomide decided to eat and then get serious about her reading. She jumped onto her bed, placing her book in front of her, and began to read. At first, she made progress, absorbing the material and pausing occasionally to reflect on what she'd read. However, her focus was soon disrupted when she realized her boyfriend, Femi, hadn't called her that day. She picked up her phone and dialed Femi's number, and they spent hours reminiscing about their time together. Ayomide laughed at Femi's jokes, and their conversation flowed effortlessly. But then Femi asked, "Aren't you going to study for your exams?" Ayomide replied, "I've been reading since morning. I think what I've read will be enough. Don't you miss me?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Femi's response was filled with affection. "I do miss you, and I'm just concerned about your exams." Ayomide playfully teased him, saying, "You sound like you don't miss me." Femi's words were laced with sweetness. "I miss you, Amo. My love, my sweetheart." Ayomide giggled, feeling loved and cherished. The conversation continued, with neither of them wanting it to end. Finally, Femi reminded Ayomide to get some reading done before bed. After they hung up, Ayomide attempted to focus on her book, but the more she tried to read, the sleepier she became. Despite her best efforts to fight it, sleep eventually won out, and she drifted off. Ayomide woke up at exactly 7 a.m., with her exam scheduled for 8 a.m. She quickly jumped out of bed and rushed to the toilet, followed by a warm bath. After getting ready for school, she attempted to review her notes, but the more she tried to focus, the more confused she became. Time was running out, and she hurried to school, hoping her friends could help her last minute. However, upon arrival, the exam invigilator, a stern and intimidating figure, rearranged the seating, placing Ayomide in a front seat. Her anxiety spiked as she realized she was now under the invigilator's intense scrutiny, with no opportunity to cheat or seek help. The invigilator seemed to be watching her every move, making her feel like she was being singled out. Feeling helpless and frustrated, Ayomide couldn't shake off the feeling that her fate was sealed. She thought to herself, maybe the statement about village people is true. As she sat in the exam hall, Ayomide couldn't shake off the feeling that the village people's words had come true. She glanced at her friends, who seemed to be writing with ease while she struggled to write anything down. In that moment, she made a promise to herself: she would never procrastinate again. Despite her efforts to focus, her eyes wandered, trying to catch a glimpse of her friend's papers. However, the invigilator's watchful gaze led to multiple warnings. When the exam finally ended, everyone outside was raving about how straightforward the exam was. Ayomide joined in, pretending she had found it easy, and her friends believed her. But as soon as she got home, Ayomide's facade crumbled. She opened her book and reviewed what she had written from someone, only to discover that she had scribbled down nonsensical answers. Her eyes widened in horror as she let out a scream, realizing the extent of her mistakes.